They thought they had found the right tone at last. A quiet tea at Clarence's house, father and son face to face after 19 long months, no cameras, no press office scripts, no stage-managed smiles, just the sound of cups on saucers and words exchanged in private. For a brief moment it felt like the beginning of something different, not a headline, not a performance, but a fragile step toward normality. And then, almost instantly, the silence fractured. A handful of phrases, the men in grey suits, categorically untrue, very sad, were enough to turn hope into a fresh front of cold mistrust. Within days, what had looked like a tentative bridge was once again covered in fog. The meeting itself mattered. For Charles it was not about protocol but the authority of the heart. However rigid the doctrine about no half-in, half-out roles, a father has the right to see his son, and to know his grandchildren beyond photographs. For Harry it was proof of reality, a chance to sit across from his father and hear "how are you," without a press release. That is why the first leaks, suggesting the conversation was formal and distant, cut so deeply. In those two adjectives people read a verdict: the ice had not broken. Harry's office countered sharply: those reports were categorically untrue, even pure fabrication. The palace, in turn, responded with weary understatement: it is very sad, especially when everyone behind the scenes is trying to make these private relationships work. Between the lines, it sounded like fatigue. There had been honest attempts, small and quiet, but once again everything spilled into the open. The nerve of this drama lies not in the existence of leaks, but in the reflexes on both sides. The Windsor reflex is institutional. Every private moment is automatically surrounded by mufflers, no comment, a palace source, careful euphemisms. Harry's reflex is trauma. Too many years of believing that the grey suits controlled not just headlines but lives. In Spare he described them as three middle-aged men pulling strings, consolidating power, deciding his fate in cold calculations. The book is finished, but the residue lingers. If something escapes into the public sphere without his consent, he assumes invisible hands are once again at work. When those reflexes collide, even genuine gestures become suspect. A cup of tea becomes scripted, a kind word becomes staged. The press, of course, feeds the cycle. They do not need smoke without fire, but they adore fire with a name. Every nuance, the tense of a verb, the choice of a pronoun is flattened into a headline. The meeting was like an official visit cancels out the fact it happened at all. Gifts were exchanged instantly sparks speculation about symbolism. One side says sabotage, the other sighs very sad, and suddenly the whole story reads like accusations volleyed across the Thames. It is less about what happened in that drawing room than about who can weaponize which adjective faster. In such an environment, truth always moves slower than rumor, and corrections are read 3 times less than their insider account. But let us be honest, no leak can destroy what two people truly protect. If father and son were locked in a steady rhythm of dialogue, newspaper spin would irritate but not threaten. The real problem is that public statements remain abundant while private confirmations are still too scarce. The palace repeats its hard line: there will be no hybrid return, no half role. Harry's camp repeats its emphasis: the focus is on his father. Both positions are defensible, but the living space between them, the place where family, not institutions, breathe, remains fragile and underpopulated. Look at the map of pain. For the palace, the pain is loss of private ground. Every leak feels like another corner of intimacy ceded to the tabloids. For Harry, the pain is the sense of an unseen script. Each whisper resembles a familiar danger, that someone else is writing his story. These wounds cannot coexist easily. When one side stays silent, the other reads concealment. When one side speaks, the other hears choreography. The only way forward would be a rigorously narrow private channel, minimal people in the room, minimal intermediaries, maximum concreteness instead of soothing generalities. Perhaps even a short pact of silence, no comment not only on the substance but on the very fact of meetings. Until both are ready to speak in their own voices, even the kindest leaks will be toxic. This does not erase reality. Harry will never be granted a half return to official duties, and the palace will not compromise protocol. But reconciliation has never been about titles. It is about rhythm, the moment when the other side begins to think, he is really trying. That rhythm can be simple: not exchanging frames for cameras, but visits that repeat, not formal teas, but casual afternoons where walls do not remember old grievances. It might mean painful adjustments, not seeing children in public, but truly seeing them in private. No one will believe in rare photographs anymore. What convinces is frequent silences, encounters that do not spill into columns. There is also the political layer. The palace has laid down a principle: no half in, half out. It defends the institution from charges of double standards. Yet in private, rigidity should not harden into coldness. The line "very sad" was, ironically, one of the palace's best responses in years, because it admitted emotion instead of hiding behind no comment. Sadness is shared, both sides feel it. And the true culprit is not grey suits or staff offices, but the inertia of trauma. Trauma cannot be disputed in press releases, it can only be healed by repeated, stubborn acts. Small ones, yes, but acts nonetheless. The media will not vanish. That is the nature of monarchy in the 21st century. But their space can be managed by shrinking the room for speculation. That means saying only what is factual: we met. The details will remain private. Period. No embellishments about warmth or formality, no hints about gifts. Let those be memories, not headlines. And Harry's team should resist the urge to fight every line in print. Sometimes a phrase dies faster if you do not revive it with denial. In restraint there is oxygen. Harry's suspicion of sabotage comes from somewhere real, the memory of the 1990s, of his mother's life distorted by an institution learning through mistakes, sometimes on other people's pain. But the monarchy of 2025 is not the monarchy of that decade. It has endured scandals, a coronation, the shock of a cancer diagnosis, and has developed an imperfect but visible reflex of openness. To recognize that would be to allow a new attempt without old labels. Maybe it is time to replace the phrase "grey suits" with "my father's colleagues." Small words, but reconciliation lives in small words. Sabotage shuts a door, misunderstanding leaves it ajar. Ultimately, reconciliation is measured by three things: resilience to noise, predictability of gestures, and capacity for silence without ultimatums. All three are still possible. The noise has already happened and can be allowed to fade. Gestures can be modest, a letter, a call, not destined for print. Pauses can be deliberate: until next month we speak only to each other. If those elements align, no source can derail reconciliation, because there will be nothing external to derail. It will be taking place where it belongs, offstage. And above all, there are the grandchildren. Children do not know the word sabotage. They only register presence or absence. For them, the measure is simple: did he come, or did he not? In that light, pride looks petty. If the palace can quietly say, "He was here," without cameras, and Harry can say, "We were with him, and it felt normal," then the narrative of sabotage collapses under its own weight. It becomes irrelevant, drowned out by ordinary schedules where grandfather and grandchildren are not a headline but a given. That would be the truest silence of all. This story is not about who is right. It is about the fact that even a royal house depends on the simplest law: between the door and the newspaper there must always be one more room, a room where two people can speak. This week, that room briefly reopened. Do not close it with the word sabotage. Call it something else: our silence. Protect it not with statements but with repetition, where each "we met" matters more than any they wrote. Only then will the storm of words finally exhaust itself, leaving behind something rarer than headlines: a family rhythm that does not need to be explained.